how much income would you have coming in if you stopped working today? I mean, that's what we're going to be talking about today, is making those investments that set you up for the rest of your life. Just think about if you wanted to go to work or didn't want to go to work, because having the money to do what you want, when you want, with whom you want, is what we desire to give you today. And with me, well, we have Holly Haas, is an expert real estate investor. She's a coach, advisor, and a keynote speaker who specializes in helping real estate agents and teams build extensive portfolios that enable financial freedom. That's what we're after. And with over 6,500 coaching hours, she has helped a lot of people. She's guided clients to extraordinary results, including building a multi-million-dollar portfolio in under 24 months. Just think about that. And as an investor, she personally has 35 plus properties and made that in under 5 years. She started with less than 100,000. Holly is now on a mission to help others become powerful real estate investors and giving them more freedom in their life. So, Holly, thanks for joining me today. We're going to dive right into this investment scene, right?
Absolutely. It is such a pleasure to be here today.
Well, you know what? It's going to be our pleasure as we find all this out, because I know Tony and I started investing. Well, before I even knew Tony, started investing. And it was that was my birthday present. Every year I wanted to buy a home. And it's amazing how you can start out with one and then grow and grow and grow. But you got to start somewhere. So how did you get into this investing in real estate gig that you're in now?
Yeah, that's a great intro question. Honestly, I was encouraged to get started by my husband. I got a real estate license. I was one of those teacher to real estate agents, and I had burnt myself out on teaching and kind of looked at the math of what it would take to become a real estate agent. And really, I just needed to sell 4 houses a year to be able to teach and not do any of the extra stuff that we do as teachers to earn an extra income. So I didn't have to do summer school or curriculum development or tutoring or any of the extra stuff on the side if I could just sell 4 houses a year. And I thought, I bet I could sell 4 houses a year. I bet this is going to be just fine. And come to find out, I really liked teaching and I really love real estate. And so it worked well in my favor to become a real estate agent. And early on, my niche was working with investors. There was just something about the non-emotional transaction.
Yeah.
You tell me what you need. I find what you need. You buy it. No one cries. I'm not having to hold your hand and walk you to the bathroom, right? Like, it worked so well for me. And so about a year into the business, I went on a listing appointment. I found a very motivated seller who kept interrupting me during the listing consultation and asking me, like, can't you just find someone who can help me buy my property fast at my price and let me move on with the property? And so, like a very good real estate agent, Diana, I signed the listing agreement and I ran home and I ate dinner, and then I set to work calling all of my investor clients and explaining to them why this was a killer screaming deal and they needed to buy it, right? Because I was going to double in that property. And after I got off the phone with the third investor, my husband came around the corner and said, is everything that you just said about that property true? And I'm like, of course it is. You know me. Like, I don't sugarcoat anything. He's like, then why wouldn't we buy it? And that's what, like, I had never thought about it. Left to my own devices, I would have missed that property and the next 20. But yeah, all it took was that one question and then I was on fire.
You know, that's interesting because we're always thinking about other people. We always want to help other people. And so here you are calling all these people, and then your husband says, well, if all that's true, why don't we buy it? And you did.
Yes.
And now you have multiple properties. Isn't it interesting? And it's more fun to wake up in the morning knowing that you have money coming in no matter what happens, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've all heard it, that it's way more fun to get up and go to work every day when you don't have to. But it really is. Like, it really is more fun when you're choosing to do it and you're not actually working for the next commission check.
That's exactly right. In fact, I've been in both places. I don't know about you, but it wasn't fun to have to get up every morning, put those kids in that little red wagon and start going door to door. And let's think about this. What's one of the biggest misconceptions that people actually have about investing in real estate?
Really, I would say that they're not in a position to do it today. Everybody seems to think it's for them for some point in the future. And it's regardless of who you are, it's regardless of what your financial situation is or your current situation is. Everybody seems to think, and real estate agents seem to think that investing is for them. It's just for a future version of them.
Well, or for their friends who have a lot of money because they don't have a lot. And here you've helped people start investing with such little amount of money. So I'm just curious because you have classes and that, you're still a teacher at heart, and you help people with investments. Yet most agents, they don't understand, or investors, how to personally evaluate an investment property. So what do you do? What do you look for? What caps, etc.?
Yeah, so you still need a property that's going to at least break even, if not be cash flow positive. And there are specific exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, you don't need a property that's going to cost you hundreds of dollars for the privilege of owning and putting a tenant in every month, right? Yeah. So a general first rule of thumb that does not work in every market, and I say that as a caveat, is for most people, you need to be looking for a property that's close to the 1% rule. If a property is for sale for $300,000, it needs to rent for close to $3,000 a month. That does not mean that it's a good investment property. It's just that first look at, should I continue to look into this property, or is it one that's not going to work for me?
So at that point, that 1% rule, that's an absolute no, don't go forward unless that's the truth, right?
If you're not close, right? So if that $300,000 property rents for $2,000 a month, no. If you're not willing to feed it $300 to $400 to $500 a month for the privilege of having a tenant live in your property, then no, you shouldn't move forward with that property.
Or worse yet, Holly, think about not having a tenant in that property. Now it's not costing you $500 a month, it's costing you a whole lot more, right? So when you're doing all of this and you evaluate that, can you walk us through one of the most successful investments that you've actually made or helped someone else make?
Yeah, well, I would be happy to share my favorite investment property. We own a quadplex, and it was one that we got to know of. It was an expired listing. My husband reached out to them, and then we kept in touch. It was 3 sisters who needed to sell their parents' estate, but they weren't quite ready. And so we had gotten to know them through a different property, but Chris is really good at his follow-up calls. And so over the months, we had figured out there was a small portfolio, including this quadplex. And I put that quadplex on my vision board. I
love that.
It was exactly the multifamily property that I wanted to own. And we are primarily single families. So getting into a quadplex just felt like I was moving on up in the world. It was in a great area, brick exterior, all the things. And it was over 2 years. And one of the sisters reached out to us, letting us know that they were finally ready to sell this quadplex and another single family house. And we had stayed in touch with them so well over the years, we already knew what we needed to know about the properties. And so while they opened it up to us and about 20 other investors, everyone else was scrambling, trying to figure out their data, and we weren't. We already knew everything we needed to know. We went and walked the single family house that we didn't know anything about. We gave them an offer the same day, and we were one of the only people that were able to come even close to asking price. We came in at asking price. And the reason we were able to do that versus everyone else is because we had done our research and we knew that all 5 units were drastically underpriced compared to where fair market rent was. So we came in at asking price. We bought the single family in the quadplex. We strategically raised rents on the quadplex over the next 18 months. We sold the single family because it wasn't one that we wanted to keep in our portfolio. And what we ended up with was $140,000 duplex, quadplex. And in today's math, it grosses over $3,300 a month.
Oh,
Like
I love that.
it's it's my favorite property. Three of the four tenants are still tenants that we acquired when we bought the property in 2020. And as they slowly decide to move out, I will convert more of their units into the midterm rentals, looking for travel nurse contracts. And my opportunity is still to raise the rents by another $2,000 a month once I get all four units fully converted.
See, so you already know where you're going. The part that I really loved about that is you were prepared. You have to prepare, and then the opportunity presents itself. Now, everybody had an opportunity, yet no
Yep.
one was prepared. And because you were, the opportunity presented itself. Man, you just snapped it up. And people say to me, "Oh, Diana, I missed that opportunity," or the opportunity was missed. I said, "No, you missed it, but somebody else got it. Holly,
Yep.
you were the person that got it." So, have you ever had an investment that went bad?
Yes. I,
I'm
so
so glad that you're human. I'm so glad.
we bought two properties right next to each other, and on paper they were cash cows. On paper they were a 16% cash on cash return. Fantastic. My property manager actually asked me not to buy them, but I was smarter than him, and so I said thanks anyway, I'm good, and I bought them. And then I kept them for 6 years because I actually wasn't evaluating. I was looking at my portfolio as a whole, and I wasn't looking at every individual property. So after 6 years of owning them, I had this brilliant idea of I should be making sure that every property is producing the returns I think they should produce. And it turns out that these properties gave me 0% cash flow for the entire 6 years that I owned them. And on paper, they should have given me a 16% cash on cash return. But the reason was they were in a little bit less desirable of an area, and they attracted a little bit lower of a quality of tenant who broke their lease. And when they left, they had done enough damage to the property that turning the property for the next tenant would eat a year or a year and a
Oh,
half.
wow. That had to be challenging because on paper, a lot of things can look good. You have to
Yes.
do a little bit more, is what I'm hearing. Do your due diligence in a lot of different areas. And that's what you help coach people on. So, how do you see the role of mindset when it comes to investment properties?
Mindset is everything. If you don't see yourself as that investor, as that person that deserves to have cash flow coming in every month, you're never going to go out and do it.
Yeah, that self worth really does come into play, doesn't it? And people
Totally.
say, well, I have the confidence to invest in property, but confidence is different than self worth. Very
Confidence will get you in trouble, honestly. Confidence will cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars if you're not careful.
well. When confidence goes into ego, I've always
Yeah.
said that ego is the number one expense for most business people, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that mindset and that mental habit and belief that you deserve it and that you can find it. Because you're very good at finding properties that aren't even in the market. So, what strategies do you use to find those properties?
It's about building relationships. I am not by nature a very people-y person. I tell a lot of my clients that I really don't like very many people, and they laugh because they know it's true. And and yet we're in a relationship business. You have to be building relationships. You have to be getting to know people, and it is about providing value, but it's also about being there consistently, just consistently building relationships that are going to put you in front of the right opportunities. And so I tell people, if you're looking for an investment property, you need to be, number one, talking to the other agents in your market center or your brokerage, and let them know what you're looking for. If you work with investors, be the squeaky wheel about that, because not every agent does, and you will find opportunities there. And then another really easy place is go to investor meetup groups. You can find some virtual, but the local ones are the really good ones. Places like meetup.com, you could probably go to 2 a week in your city if you wanted to go and show up, put your ego aside. You're not looking for the loudest guy in the room. You're looking for the 2 or 3 of us that look incredibly uncomfortable to be there. Go strike up a conversation, and chances are they need a little bit of help, either selling a portfolio that they inherited or didn't mean to own, or maybe they really want to invest anyway and they just don't know exactly how to do it, and you could help them on the agent side. Putting yourself in a place where you can find potential sellers, you'd be surprised the kind of deals you can get in touch with.
You know, it's interesting about the relationships and that you remind me actually of my husband, Tony DeCello, who said, I love real estate. I loved selling real estate. I just didn't like the buyers, the sellers, and the other realtors.
Yeah.
You know, short of that, I love real estate because he's not a real big people person. And
Yes.
so you're out of your comfort zone most of the time. Yet isn't that when you start investing, isn't everybody outside their comfort zone? How did you overcome that on the very first investment property? Did you have any sleepless nights?
That's a good question. We didn't buy outside of our means. What was the first thing I would say? So it was a stretch. Our first few investment properties, it was a stretch to buy it. And yet I was buying something with potential. So the very first one we bought dramatically under market value, and I knew I could fire sell it and still make a profit. The second one, we probably bought right at market value, but I bought it with fantastic terms and owner financing. And so again, we had contingencies. And with every property we added, we worked as quickly as we could to add another $5,000 to our emergency fund for our portfolio. So we were never overextended. I didn't have any sleepless nights about what if the hot water heater goes out, because I knew I had money sitting in account if I absolutely had to use it to make sure that the tenant had what they need to continue their standard of living.
So do you keep a separate account for your investment accounts?
Yes, every business has an emergency fund, and the portfolio is a business, so it has its own emergency fund.
Excellent. And when you buy property, do you buy it in your name or an LLC?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. If you can buy straight into an LLC, buy it straight into an LLC. And there are a few loan programs that don't make that possible, and they're not the only ones out there. You do not have to buy an investment property with a traditional conventional loan, even though that's probably all you've ever heard of. There are other options.
Right. You know, it's interesting because Tony and I are the same. You put them in an LLC, yet a lot of people, they don't know how to even form an LLC. So let's get some into the basics here. What did you do to form your LLC?
So our first couple of LLCs, we hired a CPA to do it for us. Yeah. And they charge whatever they're going to charge. Even if you need to go straight to an attorney is going to be your most expensive option to get one done. But in most states, a couple grand or less, and even an attorney will create an LLC for you. We actually got to where we had a system and a process around it. And maybe I shouldn't say this, but our admin could create an LLC for us in about 15 minutes. And it's just not that hard once you've walked through the process a few times.
Do it first with the CPA or an attorney. Yeah, I agree with that. And then learn the process, for heaven's sakes. And how do you approach the risk right now? I mean, it's a little bit of a different market with the higher interest rates. Are you doing any seller financing?
Yeah, we've seen there being a lot of options lately, and I would say like in the last 6 months with seller financing. People are willing to be creative, and I've seen deals that you're making equity at the closing table, and you're also getting a 4 or 5% interest rate. And I've even seen buyers being able to negotiate interest-only payments for the first few years on a seller carry note right now. There are very creative options available for you right now to make deals work.
Yeah, I think the big thing is a lot of agents they don't think outside the lines. It's like, here's the interest rate, this is the way it is. And what you're telling us to do is go out here. I mean, all people can do is say no for heaven's sakes. And then there's more mortgage that actually does seller financing. They'll put it together for you so you have a lower interest rate. Now, once you find a property, do you do anything as a real estate agent to make certain that you cover yourself, that they don't come back and later and say, you bought that property for so little, you took advantage of me?
Yeah, so if I'm buying a property myself, the sellers are signing disclosures stating what they did versus what I felt like fair market value was. And I'm not one that's going to walk in and take advantage of somebody. The reason why I would buy something versus listing it on the open market is because you have other motivations other than getting the highest price for your property, right? So it's as simple in most states. It's as simple as a one-page disclosure that explains the seller understands the property might have been worth X on the open market. They accepted Y because they didn't want the house to go on the MLS, or because they wanted to accept an offer and rather than accepting multiple showings. It doesn't have to be complicated, but yes, do cover yourself.
Yeah, I think that's the important part. A lot of agents don't think about that. And I'll ask people from time to time, because Tony and I have bought investment properties, as you have, outside of your state, right? And agents send us things, and I'm going, no one's ever taught them what to look for an investor. Now, we've talked a little bit about you buying the property, yet you've sold a lot of investors, and you help agents learn how to sell to investors. Let's switch gears and talk about that for just a minute. I want to buy a property. I don't care what state it's in. And I send out to 52 agents, hey, I'm looking for investment properties. What should they be looking for me?
Yeah, well, that's a tricky question. So the way that I teach agents to work with investors is you really need to pre-qualify the investor. And I don't want to give you my formula if you're my investor. I want you to give me your formula, and that's because no two investor formulas are exactly the same. And so I don't want to have 30 people that have exactly the same formula. I want to have 30 people with 30 different formulas if I'm working on building an investor division, so that I can really help the most people get connected with meeting their needs in future investment properties. So I teach a process of pre-qualifying an investor, and it's not really that much different than pre-qualifying a seller. We all know what we're supposed to be doing, and we just frankly aren't doing it. But it's having that initial conversation. It's explaining what are your needs, what's your timeline, what formula are you looking for, what types of financing are you qualified for, or do I even need to help you figure out the financing components so that we can talk about some of these other criteria. And then once you tell me what you're comfortable with, and I'll, depending on what part of the country you're coming from, you might be completely fine with a formula that an investor that's from the Midwest would never accept for one of their rental properties. I don't think it's about me telling you what type of a property you should buy. I think it's about letting the investor say what they consider to be a win. And as long as it's reasonable and you feel like you can find that in your market, then go and help them find that property in your market.
See, what I love about that is you put it back on the investor. You didn't say, hey, I think this is a good investment for you, when you didn't even know what I was looking for. You would literally interview me just like a seller or a buyer, because you can say yes or no.
Yeah.
You made a comment there, though, that I want to really hit on. You said an investor division. And I know you help people set up investor divisions within their real estate team or their real estate company. So let's talk about that division for investors.
Yeah. Yeah. And just one comment on what you just said. Ownership is authorship. You taught me that. You said that for years. And it really is true. If I tell you what type of property you should invest in, even if it's true, you're going to have a lot less follow through than if you decide and you tell me that that's the type of property that you want to buy. So it totally matters.
Yeah, well, it's you'll believe what you say. You may not believe what I say, because after all, I'm selling something, right? I mean, let's face it. We're taught from a young age, if they're selling something, you be careful, right? So I love that. So this investor division, I just love the way that you put that. And I think it's something, especially in today's market, that every agent needs to determine that they desire one and learn how to set it up correctly. So let's help them out.
Yeah, so the first thing, and why I think that term is so important, is it's a mindset decision, right? It doesn't have to take away from your current business. It's in addition to your current business. It's an extra book of business that you're currently not tapping into. It's extra transactions that could be on top of your regular book of business. And it really at its core just starts with being vocal to your core audience, being vocal to your sphere, and making sure that they're aware that they should be working towards building an investment portfolio for their future as well.
Yeah.
And they can do that through you. Like that at its most basic piece, that's where it starts, is just beginning to be vocal with your sphere. And then from there, I do think the two pieces of the business need to be ran a little bit differently. Systems and processes inside of an investor division are the same systems and processes that you should be utilizing every day and every week as an investor. So you're not adding anything to your plate. You need to be analyzing investment properties every single week.
Such good advice. So what are some of maybe the mistakes that you made in setting up an investment division?
I don't think of anything really as a mistake. I think about it as a learning opportunity. And if I learned my lesson, then it wasn't really a mistake. It was just on my path towards future success. I would say where I see a lot of people make mistakes in general is they decide they're going to start working with investors, and they might rope in one or two investors and go start showing them homes, and they show up like they're the expert. Mm-hmm. And magically it doesn't lead to a transaction. Or they get in business with a few investors who are super happy to run them all around town, and they want to write offers at 50% of asking price, and they want them to put in 20 offers a week, and then they magically wonder why it never leads to a sale. So one of those two are probably the biggest mistakes that I see in general. And I encourage people, you don't have to act like the smartest person in the room if you're not. Utilize other investors' knowledge and skill set and allow them to help you learn the industry. My first few investors, and I can think of my first three, it took me about 20 properties for each of them before we found a property that they put under contract and purchased. And the reason why they kept coming back after subsequent rounds of showings was because I asked questions. If they weren't willing to buy these two houses we went to look at, I asked them questions, and I got better. The next houses I sent them were better than the first two that I had sent them. I was willing to be learning based, and I was willing to grow and improve. And come to find out, about 20 houses later, we found the house they were willing to buy. Now I had my template. Now I just have to go and duplicate that house. And it come to find out, once I'm clear about what you're looking for, I can go and find other houses, and it worked really well.
Well, yeah, clarity is power. And you know, the interesting part about all of that is that when you said you're learning based, you were curiosity based. A lot of people go, I've shown them that many homes and they haven't bought, and they go into judgment rather than curiosity. And that's a killer. I mean, you learn, and I love what you said about mistakes, Holly. You're so right. The adaptive learning model that I teach is that we learn, we implement, we make a mistake, and we learn a new way, right? And we just keep going round in circles our whole life. So one of the mistakes, it wasn't a mistake, actually, it's something that led to a great thing, was videos. And you said that property videos save you a lot of time. And can just walk me through what does that mean with the property videos and investments?
Yeah, they're amazing. They're amazing is how I will start with that. So I got to a ceiling in my investor division. I was closing about 80 transactions a year on the investor side, and I was completely at capacity, and it was hard. I was giving up a lot of evenings and weekends, things that you don't typically have to do when you're working with investors. And I went to a Tony Robbins event and had a little bit of time to just breathe and not be in the business, but really think about things. And what came out of that event that, I mean, made me $1 million over the next 5 years easily was I wonder what my investors would think instead of taking the investor to the property and showing the home. What if I just went to the home and shot a video and spoke through the video as if we were there talking in person, pointed out everything we would have seen if they were there with me, and sent them the video. And I pitched it to a few of my investors, and these were doctors, lawyers, like these were some big name people. They loved the idea because not only was I saving myself time, but I was saving them time, and they trusted my opinion as much as they trusted theirs. I wasn't going to leave something out of that video that was going to come back and bite me later. And it revolutionized. We were able to almost double the investor division within the next 12 months because if I go and shoot 123 Main Street and for some reason you don't want to buy it, I can just go send it to the next investor. I'm not in versus two different showings in 24 hours, and maybe I missed out because the sellers accepted an offer to someone else. It let me be much more nimble, and it allowed my buyers to actually get into properties that they physically couldn't have gone and seen fast enough. And then ultimately, division-wise, systems and processes, I replaced myself from shooting the videos. I hired a full-time admin, and about half of her job was going and shooting the videos for me. And so I took 45 minutes to go see a property and shoot the video and turned it into 5 sitting at my desk watching her version of the video. We would analyze the property and send it out to the investors and be on our way.
See, that's the greatest part is you're learning to leverage. And a
Yes.
lot of agents want to do everything themselves because, oh, if I don't know, what if they ask me a question? So what if they ask you a question?
Yes.
Find the answer. Like you said earlier, you don't have to be the expert. In fact, many times people would ask me a question and I would say, so what do you think? And then they just tell me everything they thought. It always works, right? I love the videos. I think everybody listening to this needs to do that. I would like that rather than taking my time to go look at a property, to watch a video at 10 o'clock at night versus having to run out there during the day, taking time away from what I desire to do. Now, I'm going to take you back a little bit here because you teach all of this, right?
I do.
And so they're not going to get everything from us. Even if you think you're getting it all, believe me, this goes much, much deeper on every part. So how much money do you need to start in investing? I know I didn't have much.
Yeah, it depends on the market. It depends on the deal. My second investment property that I bought, I put $3,000 down.
That's pretty good. And a lot of people will go, well, I don't know how to do that. Well, see, that's the point. Find out. Take the
Right.
class. What's the best loan program for investing that you have found?
For a lot of people, a lot of agents in particular, I really like DSCR loans. They're to qualify for a DSCR loan, the property has to justify the property's expenses. And so you're not qualifying based on your own income. You're not providing, tax returns and jumping through all of the hoops that a lot of contract workers don't qualify to jump through anyway. For a lot of people, DSCR loans are a great way to start. And they're also lower down payments. You can get a DSCR loan for 15 or 20% down versus more.
Yeah, because they want so much more. And man, when you own investment properties, I mean, Tony and I were up to about 104 at one point. Oh, literally poke my eyes out. Even then we had property managers, it was still a lot, right? And when you start getting up to that, and then you want to buy another property, and they drag you through so much. So literally understand the financing for your investments. So could you share just a couple of examples of maybe some funding scenarios that happened to you that, they were challenging. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I would say make sure who your lender is and make sure that they're solid and work to find solid lenders for your other investors as well. That I have seen not so much the lender, but the underwriting process can absolutely make a deal incredibly painful. And if I'm being honest with you, probably the hardest loan scenario that we ever faced personally was a refinance of our primary. And it was a bank that was offering 1/4% lower interest than anyone else in town was. And come to find out, there's a reason they were 1/4% lower. And it was because their systems and processes were not up to par with everyone else. And you had to jump through so many extra hoops, and it took so much longer to get it closed. So no, that cheapest isn't always best. And once you find a good lender, your goal should be to have 3 to 5 different lenders in multiple categories. You should have 1 or 2 DSCR lenders that are happy to jump with different qualifications. Another hidden secret is, did you know that you can close a commercial loan on a residential property? Most people have no idea that that's a thing, but it is. And if you call and you ask, if you just call your regular lender and you say, I like a commercial loan product, they'll act like you're crazy. You call the bank and ask for the commercial division, and then ask who will service a residential home on a commercial loan. Those qualifications are, again, totally different. If you talk to 200 different lenders, you'll probably get 200 different loan products. And it's about finding the right person who's hungry for your business mixed with an institution that's eager enough to work with people growing real estate portfolios, that they're going to make it somewhat easy. But I agree with you. If you're having to, that's another drawback of a conventional loan, is you're starting over every time you identify a new property. You're submitting an entire new loan package versus working with DSCR lenders or commercial lenders. 70% of the file transfers from your last closing to this one, and you're not starting over every time.
And that was many, many years ago, probably many years. Some of the people listening to this that are not even that old, Tony's birthday is today at 83, so it kind of takes you back as to how many years it was. Now, the interesting part, though, that I found out, and you do this very well, Holly, is the fact that establish relationships with lenders. Get to a point like where we wanted to buy a building with Linda and Jimmy McKissick. You just call the lender. They know who you are. They say, here's what we'll give you. Here's how much down we want. Here's your interest rate. Let's go for it, right? You can get to that point when you establish that great relationship. You said it at the very beginning. Starts with relationships, whether it's finding a property, finding an investor, finding a banker, finding a loan officer. And so let's think about all these relationships that you have. What do you do to build a really great network of investors? And once you find them, how do you take care of them?
Yeah, so building the investors is word of mouth. I've been very, very clear, was always clear at the beginning, the middle, the end of the relationship. I'm not just working for this transaction. I'm working for the property that you're going to start buying from me every year or every quarter, whatever that looks like, as we continue on your path towards building wealth that's going to change generations. And I'm also working for the referrals. You're going to send me friends and family members who absolutely need my services, and you won't be able to shut up talking about me because I've just done such a great job in helping you change your family legacy forever. And those are some of the things that we all think should go without saying, but it doesn't go without saying. You teach people how to treat you. That's another thing I've learned from you over the years. And so we teach people that I'm going to do a fantastic job for you, and in return, you're going to continue giving me future business, and you're going to refer friends and family to me. Those are the people you want to work with anyway. I want to work with the people who come to me from other people that I like working with, versus going out and trying to hustle for the next cold piece of business all the time.
Well, see, that's the part I really enjoy about you, because, see, it's just the way you speak. You say, you're going to give me referrals. It's a given. A lot of people are going, ooh, am I going to get referrals? They have all this insecurity. You know, if you do a good job, you're going to get referrals, yet you got to ask for them. So many people want people to go, ooh, you did such a good job. It's that ego, right? Talking in your head. And you go, no, just ask for the referral. They'll say they don't have one if they don't have one. And if they do have one, you deserve it. So, what systems did you put into place? I just love hearing about this. 100 properties. Okay, let's see. What systems or processes did you implement that allowed you to close 100 deals in 12 months?
Yeah, and so specifically that was 100 off the investor division. And then we all also had a little piece of regular buyers and sellers on the side. Um, Two big things. One, we kept our investors organized, and every investor that made it onto my list was pre-qualified. I knew exactly what they were looking for, and I knew that they were actually going to be willing to jump through the right hoops. That's as simple as a spreadsheet. I teach it even still today. You need to have all of your active investors at the top. I don't care if you're starting with 2, still have a spreadsheet. Exactly what are they looking for? Exactly how much can they afford? What's their loan situation looking like, or how are they going to pay for it, and what's their timeline look like? And then I had a black line on my spreadsheet, and below the line were all of my investors that weren't currently active, but they were going to be. Maybe I just helped Johnny buy an investment property, and so he wasn't going to be looking for the next 6 months, but I knew I needed to keep him somewhere because eventually he'd be ready to go back on my active list, right? And so then when you find a property, because working in investor division is different, very quickly your lead gen is finding the property, not finding the next investor. And so when you find a property, then you pull up your spreadsheet and you say, okay, who is this deal best suited for, based off of timelines, based off of formula, based off of who do I like the most? I hate to say that, but my favorite investors got better deals. Like, that's just the
Well, let's
reality.
face it, they all do. We all have favorites, right? People go, I don't have a favorite. Oh, get over yourself. Yes, you do. You have a
Yes,
favorite.
absolutely.
And
And to
go ahead.
and to that point, if you need to put yourself on the list to think of yourself as the investor first, then put yourself first on the list, and you need to be looking at yourself first and saying, should I buy this deal? And if the answer is no, I mean, we cherry pick properties. I used to tell all my investors that if it's an A plus 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 property, I'm keeping it. Now you can still have an A plus property, but we cherry pick. After that, it's just the system of who is best suited to buy this property right now.
Right. And if you can't buy the A plus plus, of course, you're going to pass it on. Yet that's why you got your real estate license, for heaven's sake. That's why you're an investor. Now, I just want the people that are listening to this, because we're coming to a close as far as time goes. I could talk to you for a couple of hours, especially about all this generational wealth and what's happening tax-wise and long-term investments and what we're going to do. Yet, this is why having the investment course or taking your training, it's what are the components of your passive income blueprint? You're going to share that with us. In your experience, what are the biggest challenges that people face? All of these things, if you haven't been an investor, or even if you have and haven't made as much in your investments as you desire, that's why you go and learn from people that have been there and done that. Who you listen to really does matter in life. You become like the 5 closest people that you hang out with, and the 5 closest people that you learn from. So in all the things that you've done, and you've got a track record to go on investments and help other agents start that investment division in their real estate careers. So we've put all of the links and all of your information here at the bottom. And so what's the one question that you wish I would have asked you that I failed to ask?
It has been a really great time with you all. Say that. Probably it's just how does someone who knows they're not where they want to be, what is a small step that they could take today that would help move them forward?
Great question.
And I would say the answer to that is you need to start analyzing investment properties, and don't make it complicated. Start with 2 properties a week. Hold yourself accountable. If you need a spreadsheet, you can literally Google investor analyzer spreadsheet. You can go to my website, which is linked at the bottom, and you can get my investor toolkit, which includes a deal analyzer spreadsheet. But you need to start looking at properties. You're never going to find a great deal unless you know what an average deal looks like first. So start with 2 properties a week, build to 3 properties a week, build to a property every day, start analyzing 2 properties a day, right? Like you have to be analyzing properties, and you'll find that it doesn't take long, 30 or 45 days. You're going to know the market and feel a lot more comfortable as an investor or a future investor than you did if you didn't start taking consistent action.
And the other thing they can do is obviously sign up for your course. So here's the fun part about it. We're here to help you become more, help you to become more as an investor, because I do want you to have passive income, just like Holly does. And just subscribe. Hit that subscription button below if you always want to learn how to become more in all areas of your life. Holly, thank you so much for being with us today. Appreciate all that you do to help others become the very best version of themselves. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Diane.